News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast right here from Soonerscoop.com. The entire gang joins us as we get ready for Texas. And I don't know if anyone is ready for Texas, including the Oklahoma football team. But obviously the biggest questions, is Dillon Gabriel going to play? And guys, I think just as important is Billy Bowman going to play, because that defense and that secondary in particular was terrible after he left the game.
I mean, I think the answer is no and maybe. I mean, just from what we saw with Billy Bowman on Monday night, it seemed like that is going to be not even just a week thing. That's going to be a multiple week thing, just the way that he was limping around. He has a brace on his right knee.
Now, was he not in pads?
No.
Okay, so he wasn't practicing.
No, he didn't practice on Monday, and I unless he had some type of miracle worker come connect with him over the last 48 hours, I would imagine that's the same to be on Tuesday as well as Wednesday. I've
digested like all of Brent's stuff.
I'm still depressed. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, I'm just saying.
I thought he was feisty, though.
He was feisty.
But I'm just saying, with Bowman, it seems like he's been more optimistic for a guy that, as you guys described on Monday, limping around at a knee brace.
Maybe he thought his season was done, like an ACL, MCL deal, and instead it just might be a couple weeks.
Yeah. Well,
yay.
Look, Josh McCuistion is with us as well. Since we did the post game all together, I guess we've gotten our thoughts out there about what we're seeing, but just I don't know how much you've kind of rewatched it, or if there's much left if there's any meat left on that bone. I mean, it was just awful. I mean, I think maybe the direction we go is just talking about last night. We got to talk to defensive players. If you talk to, I think, Deshaun White, you felt like, okay, maybe they can turn this thing around. If you talk to Justin Harrington, maybe you felt like, okay, these guys are still in denial a little bit.
Well, I've thought about this. We talked about this morning, Bob. It's one of those things that, on one hand, I think you want them to come in there and basically burn the thing down and I don't know what that would be through word as far as like what you want to hear. You just want to feel better about the situation. But I also understand the flip side of it, and this is the side that they've taken as far as we got to make some changes. I know that they are embarrassed by how they're playing. They have to be better. It's obvious. But there's nothing that can be said between Monday and Saturday down at the Cotton Bowl that will make anybody feel better about the last 2 weeks other than them going out at 11 o'clock and simply not being terrible.
I mean, if they think they're far away, then their season's over. They have to believe that they're just a play here, a play there, or else there's no way their confidence will ever be restored compared to what it was the first 3 games of the year.
It's just one of those things. It's like I think everybody wants to hear them come in, and they want to hear Brent almost kind of say the same thing, throw everybody under the bus. But the flip side of that, if they did come in and say that, would be, well, this team's in turmoil after 5 weeks. Wouldn't it? Like, that would be the flip side of it, and everybody would go, well, what the hell is going on in the locker room? That's the biggest problem. So it's really a no-win situation, but at the same time, it's one of those things that I think everybody just wants to be made, I don't know, feel better about the situation by their words when really there's nothing that can be said. I mean,
it comes down to you have to show it on the field. That's what that point they're at right now. It doesn't matter who's your coach, who's coaching you, how good they are, what they've done in the past. Like, you have to go out on the field and perform. You have to tackle people. I mean, that's what Deshaun White said last night. He was like, tackling was bad. I mean, like, we got to fix tackling. We got to fix this. We got to fix that. Like, he can see what needs to be fixed. I think they all can see what needs to be fixed. It's just, can they do it? And it's to such an inept level in that TCU game. I continue, like this week, I just feel like the coaches don't deserve blame at this point. I mean, the players were so terrible, and just executing things that every team is expected to execute.
Ted Roof said it best. I mean, they don't have a defense where you just let a guy run by you and he's open 35 yards down the field.
I can't believe that's a real answer.
Josh, you're kind of you're obviously not an outsider, but I mean, you're outside of the state. You're taking in the interviews that we post and everything like that. What's the tone that you get from some of these guys that maybe we're blinded by being, I guess, quote unquote, around it every day?
You know, my feeling is Ted Roof gets put into a tough spot because I think we all know this is Brent's defense. He's designed it. It's his deal. And then Ted Roof has to walk out and answer questions. Like, it's not – I mean, there's no – you're exactly right. There's no answer he's going to give that's going to give people the pound of flesh they want. Like, he could come down fire and brimstone. He could come down positive. He could come out any way he wants to, and people are going to object to it. Like, there's just no way around that reality. So I just think that it's all meaningless to me. Like, because we heard, like, and Eddie, what's funny to me, and I've come to this reality in the last 24 hours, kind of after the idiot, I'm not sure I'm not kind of on your side of the whole Kansas State TCU conversation. Like, no. Yeah.
Welcome home, buddy. Welcome home. Let's burn this bitch down.
When I go back and look at that TCU game, I'm like, you take 4 plays out of this game, and it's not that, I mean, like, it's not good. It's not pretty, but it's survivable. The Kansas State game, like, you just got, like, over and over, like, 8 yards here, 7 yards there, like just on and on and on. They made some stops throughout the game against TCU. Now, they didn't make nearly enough of them. I'm not trying to tell you that outside of those 4 plays, they were great. They were not. That's not what I'm getting at. But it felt like Kansas State was more consistently problematic for OU's defense and wasn't caught, like, wasn't doing anything they hadn't seen. Like, there wasn't anything that was, like, tricky about Kansas State. Now, not that TCU caught OU off guard, but there are some things that, okay, I can sort of understand how this happened or that happened. One guy gets out of position and you really get punished for it. But that's the thing I come away with. Like, I've been watching Texas and West Virginia. And West Virginia had some busts, too, that you could see. And Texas just didn't take advantage of, like, in the same way that, you know, if OU had been hit in the same way that Texas hit West Virginia, they're in that game in the fourth quarter. It's amazing to me that every mistake OU made against TCU was so, like, they seized on it in such a massive way.
It's just, and like, I understand the other part of it too, and I think this is the most frustrating thing for anybody that has watched this stuff over the last 2 weeks. It's the bust. It's like, there's a certain checklist of stuff that you thought that was going to just simply be taken care of with Brent Venables' presence on the sidelines. Discipline was number 1. They've been undisciplined, and that's putting it lightly over the last 2 weeks. I mean, that's kind of the buzzword of the week is discipline. The bust in the secondary and even in the run game and the fits and stuff like that, it simply doesn't make sense to me. I'm not smart enough, like, from a football aspect to understand why they continue to happen. But I do understand what is coming out of, you know, Venables' mouth and the players' mouths, just as far as everybody working together, just the understanding simply of the defense and how it works and how you need to use other guys to actually make a tackle, not just a person actually physically bringing somebody down. I get that. It's just like, you know, when DJ Graham lets a guy run by him, it's just like, it's the guys that are making the mistakes are guys that are the quote unquote
been there
veterans on the team. And that's where I'm at the point of, if it happens again on Saturday, get their ass off the field. I don't want to see them play anymore. I'll kill somebody. No, seriously.
I'm a little amazed that there haven't been any in-game adjustments that could stop it.
Yeah.
Like, that's where I wonder about what Brent's doing.
I did notice in the TCU game, Josh, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but Brent had not been calling plays. Like, he had not been signaling in plays, but he started doing that in the second half against TCU. Like, he was he just took it over. He was like, look, you guys aren't, either getting this in fast enough or we're not doing it the way it needs to be done. So he just like took over.
I think it's almost like when you're like with and I don't have a kid, so I can't use that experience, but it's like when you see like a little cousin or somebody doing something and you're like, do this. And then you tell them like to have to tell them like 3 or 4 times and you're like, just God damn it. Just
move,
give me the
just
thing.
move. Here, I'll do it.
It was almost like that a little bit. Because sometimes he'll do it. He was doing it a little bit in Lincoln.
Was he?
But I think it's almost more out of just like, basically like he's just so used to doing it. I don't know. Maybe something comes over him to the point where it's like,
or just when things go wrong. Yeah, it's probably like that.
He's like, get it in.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I did notice that as well, Kerry.
That's his way to not run on the field. Like that's his little access where he can have a little mental release.
It's like his tick.
Yeah.
Well, look, this is the thing with the defense. Texas coming up Saturday. I asked Deshaun about this yesterday. Bob, you were there. But Texas has seen what's happened the last couple of weeks. I mean, they know, like, if you get one-on-one with Woody Washington, throw it up for grabs. See what happens. Like, They're going to attack everything that they've seen this defense fail at over the last couple of weeks right off the bat. So how are they going to react to that initial punch? Are they going to let Xavier Worthy get over the top of them and score an easy touchdown? Like, if that starts to happen, then the confidence that this defense has lost continues to be lost. Like, they have to, in order for them to have a chance in this game, they have to go out and play well from the start defensively and start rebuilding that confidence. Because it may not be lost in every player, but you can tell that some of the players have definitely lost confidence.
I mean, OU's trailed nonstop the last 2 games, and they haven't had the first score going back to the first game of the season. I mean, if they can just get a stop on the first drive, that's where we're at. Just a stop on the first drive,
even a field goal,
just to feel good about yourself,
and not like a 8-9 play drive. Like that's almost a win at this point. Even if the other team scores, if it's a multiple play drive beyond like 6, like you're doing okay. And that's sad to say.
Oh, they're back to baby steps.
Yes, if the offense has a chance to have the lead after both teams have had a possession, they finally have a win.
And the other thing is, even if Dillon Gabriel is at the game. By the way, Jeff Lebby, you have got to stop with the fast offense. Like, you got to shut it down. Like, you cannot run that offense anymore until this defense gets fixed. Like, you're hurting everyone, and you're making it harder to win games running the up-tempo stuff, right? You got to slow it down. Even if Dillon Gabriel is in the game, even if he's playing, you have to basically slow this game or lengthen this game, however you want to put it. You shorten the game.
They have to K-State them.
Yeah.
They have to K-State them.
That's where OU is right now.
I just don't know if they can line up and physically beat people up front, especially in the middle with Andrew Rain.
They haven't had any problem running the ball, though.
But if Texas is going to stack the box, which I would imagine if Gabriel can't play, they're going to say, whoever the OU quarterback is, all right, big boy, beat us with your arm.
Yeah.
I just don't know if they can do that. And, I guess that kind of leads into the quarterback situation for Oklahoma and kind of the mystery that surrounds that whole thing. Maybe it isn't a mystery. Maybe we're just kind of hoping and wishing that it's going to be something different. But, I saw it this morning. Ryan Aber put it in his story talking about the backup quarterback situation. It's insane.
Yeah.
OU hasn't had a quarterback miss a start due to injury. 2014, Trevor Knight.
Wow.
I mean, that's 8 years that they haven't had it. Like, how fortunate
all
they have been.
coaches' decisions.
Sure.
When it came to Baker, with
like
Kyler, and then Austin Kendall, with Kyler.
Yep.
Spencer Rattler, Caleb stuff.
It's kind of insane to me that it's been that long since they've had an injured quarterback. It kind of highlights just how, spoiled in a way everybody's been around here. I don't know. I think I've officially talked myself into thinking that it's going to be somebody other than Bevel if Gabriel can't play. I thought it was...
You haven't talked yourself into it. You've said repeatedly, if they start Davis Bevel, this team has lost me.
Yeah, 100%. I do say that in thinking also that I give him the benefit of the doubt that he's much better than what we saw on Saturday being thrown into that situation down 24. He was just simply awful. I don't know any other way to say
That's
it.
where I bring up Trevor Knight again. The 2015 game where Baker goes out with concussion. Trevor Knight looked like the worst quarterback that's ever played football.
Yeah.
And if you're
he had been a starter before that.
If you're not prepared going into that moment, even if you say you are, it's going to look like what Davis Bevel looked like last Saturday. So maybe this week his head's on straight. I don't know what his ceiling is, but he can't be any worse than what he did against the Frogs.
It should be noted here that I mean, they kind of brought it on themselves by moving practice over to the indoor facility on Tuesday night. I don't know if that's a big deal. I don't know if it's a story. I don't know where that
trick plays, baby. They're coming.
I mean, bring something. You can't line up with Davis Bevel and just beat Texas. I don't think that that's going to be a possibility. So I don't know. Josh, you're the head coach you're the offensive coordinator at Oklahoma. Who are you starting if Gabriel can't play on Saturday?
I don't think it's Bevel. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. I don't think it's
bad for shitting on the kid. It's just
I again, the style of game and what Kerry said earlier, I couldn't agree with more. They've got to slow it down. This is a role reversal of the last 6 years of OU Texas, where OU wants to maintain the ball, go on long drives, keep that offense off the field, all those explosive weapons that Texas has. Do everything you can to keep the ball away from those guys, whatever you have to do. And again, even if it is Dillon Gabriel, guys, have we thought at any point this year, wow, they're going fast, that's really keeping Dillon Gabriel in rhythm? No, that hasn't been a thing. So change it up, see what happens. Maybe for whatever reason, this unit's going to be better just going a little bit slower and having a little more time to process the information. Whatever it is, just try something that helps him get more comfortable, because clearly it's not happening right now. But to me, I mean, I think you've got to control the ball. You're going to run the ball a lot. If you get an athletic quarterback out there that's actually dangerous on those read plays, I think it gives you something. And, you guys talked about it. Obviously, Texas, if it's not Gabriel, they're going to load the box. They're going to have everybody in there. I think that plays okay for Oklahoma because, we answer by putting Daniel Parker and Braden Willis.
Bingo.
That's a battle that OU can win. On the edge, they should be – because DeMarvion Overshown, as talented as he is, he's 220 pounds. Daniel Parker gets his hands on him, and it's over. There's just – that's not a fight Texas is going to win. So – I think there are ways that can play into things for Oklahoma, and they can go on those 12-play, 70-yard drives where they're just kind of just slowly getting down the field. And again, I think I'm talking myself into crap here.
Yes.
It may be total
Wednesday.
Bullshit.
We're here.
Yeah,
by Thursday is usually when the turnaround comes.
But I think the offense, I can see a light at the end of the tunnel. If the defense is anything like they've been the last 2 weeks, it's all for naught. It doesn't matter.
See, I'm almost the exact opposite. I think the defense will at least
be respectable.
I would take a tier below respectable, considering where they're from. But if they don't have Gabriel, I just have no idea what they're going to be able to do offensively. It's going to be extremely tough to move the ball.
Not terrible.
I mean,
I'm trying to find the right adjective.
It's so bad. It was so bad on Saturday.
That's why I'd like to know about
in the first quarter
Marcus Major, because if they could do all three running backs, just keep them going, keep them going.
Major would be perfect for the kind of game we're talking about. We're just a sledgehammer, just going to keep hitting you and kind of win later in the game.
Well, and that's isn't that the cliche line that the team that runs the ball the best at the Cotton Bowl usually wins the game? Now, who's to say that OU's going to be able to stop Bijan Robinson? That's a completely different story.
Oh, that's scary.
Defensively, over the last 2 weeks, OU's given up 14 plays of over 20 yards. That's hard to fathom. That's not
where after the first 3 games, there's one play over 30.
Right. It's insane. It really is insane. And, I mean, last week you're talking about 6 plays that went for over 320. 6 plays. That's
more than 50 yards per play.
Is that bad? Is that not good?
It's not good.
It's almost and I guess that's where you go back to this idea that, I mean, is it just small changes that need to be made? Defensive line's been just so overpowered over the last couple weeks, and you would think that they'd be able to help them. at some point, but there has been no help there. I mean, if the defensive ends get manhandled like they did a week ago, it's going to be another long day.
Well, and let's face it. I mean, the thing that came out earliest this week is the play of the defensive ends. Reggie Grimes, Ethan Downs, Stripling didn't play. Lualu was nowhere to be found either, and he'd been doing some things recently. But those guys getting manhandled is the biggest problem.
Yeah. Well, and the linebackers have just been like, it's one of the many questions about the defense right now, but like, what's happened to Danny Stutzman? Mm-hmm. He looked great in the first 3 games.
He looks tentative.
And he does. He's taking short, choppy steps. He's not, like, he looked like a missile in the first 3 games. He knew exactly where the ball was. And Josh, is that something?
Butkus guy.
Right. Is that something that he's just thinking too much? And then that leads into the question of, how can they simplify it for him? Is that just not studying enough? Is it just simply playing better teams where the defensive linemen are getting their ass kicked and they're getting thrown into the second level of the defense? There's just so many questions right now about what's happening defensively with Oklahoma.
Guys, the DJ Graham play that I know it's easy to go back to, and I feel like we're just burying the kid because everybody realizes what happened on that play. But that's cover 3, guys. That's not a complicated thing. Like, that's not – now, maybe it's a missed call like we've heard about on the 3rd and 16 in the Kansas State game. Like, that's got to get fixed. Whatever it is that's if these are truly – the calls aren't getting to these guys, get them in fat. Like, whatever – that's one of the few things about this that, like, that's a coaching fix. Like, they've got to fix whatever that problem is. But to me – it feels, and I know Brent said this a couple of times, it feels like guys are trying to, I'm not sure he's going to be where he needs to be. I'm going to do more. No, just do what you're supposed to do. Do your part and let everybody else be where they're supposed to be. Because if you go back and look at that real far wide version of the long touchdown pass, everybody else plays that almost perfectly, including Justin Broyles, including David Agwebu. Everybody's, whipping boys right now. They played fine. They're great. They're where they need to be, and Graham just blows the coverage. And again, he may not have seen it. It may not be on him. But for whatever reason, he's not where he's supposed to be. And it's stuff like that where you're just like, guys are just not – like, it feels like they're trying to do too much, and they're thinking about everything rather than just, I'm supposed to be here. Let me take care of that problem.
By the way, one thing that's not a problem, primeshrimp.com. PRIME shrimp.com. Go check them out. Great sponsors of the podcast. Josh and I have both had a lot of their stuff, and what it is just an easy way for you to get a restaurant quality meal. If you like some shrimp, they got all kinds of different varieties, the French Quarter Alfredo, the garlic herb butter, the new lemon and cracked pepper, which I'm going to order that because I've got to try it because I'm a big lemon pepper chicken fan. If you're like, a little bit more spicy, you get their signature or their Louisiana shrimp boil, or you can just get plain the Simply Shrimp and do it up how you want to do it. But really simple, no mess, no fuss. Just put it in boiling water. You don't have to thaw it or anything like that. Just put it in boiling water, less than 10 minutes, and you got a quality restaurant meal for yourself. And really, one package feeds 2 people. So go to primeshrimp.com, PRIME shrimp.com, and use your promo code Sooner Scoop, and you get $20 off your first order. And really proud of the Sooner Scoop community for helping us out with the promo. We've sold hundreds and hundreds of orders of Prime Shrimp, and it's for a good reason. They're really, really good. So go use that promo code Sooner Scoop, get $20 off your first order at primeshrimp.com. All right. We can get back into the Texas game a little bit, but I know it's a little bit of a paranoia on the board right now, Josh, about Brent Venables came in here. He started pulling in really good defensive recruits. Now these last couple of performances have people wondering, and you've seen people come out on Twitter in support of Brent. I think Bob even said, seems organized almost, like he's very distrusting. We're trying to shake that in him. But no, Josh, I mean, what is the position that OU is in Is there any danger right now of losing recruits?
You have to defend your answer from the board chat.
I want to say, for the members of the board that read that and for people that don't know what Bob is talking about, someone asked me in board chat, over under 2.5 decommitments before signing day. I said over. A lot of that is based on my feelings about where this season can go. If Oklahoma can right the ship, they're going to be fine. Like it won't go that badly. Now, I don't know if that brings you any solace to know that means I don't think it's going to go that well. But I think, again, if they can find their feet and they play okay and they go 8-4, 9-3, whatever it may be, they'll be fine. Like they're not going to lose. It's not going to be any mass exodus. And even if they go 6-6, I don't think it's going to be a huge series of departures. But there are several guys that have either connections to different areas or connections to different staffs. And I know, like, for example, and this is not a guy I'm overly worried about, but he's a guy that I know at school is working hard, is PJ Adebawore. Missouri is not letting up on him at all in any way, shape, or form. So do they get him to, hey, just come take a look, come have a visit, see what you think, that kind of thing. And then how does that all kind of can mushroom? Because, again, when you have the no visit policy, OU has to come down and say, we don't consider you a commitment. And they have to kind of sever that tie. And some kids aren't going to take that well. Even if they know that's the game, hearing something and living it are two very different things for a lot of these guys. So we'll see what that all means. But, yeah, I don't think anything's imminent. I think because I kind of disagree with Bob in that it didn't feel that orchestrated to me. Like, now maybe amongst the players themselves.
Yes.
But guys, yeah. Okay. Then I would agree with you there. But, like, we're so used to the stuff with, like, Lincoln and his staff where they would have, they would send something out almost form to all the commitments, and then they would send it all out, and you're like, well, that just came from OU because they're all saying the exact same thing. As to where this felt more just like I trust Brent or Boomer Sooner or all good, whatever it may be, this felt a little more, grassroots than some of the stuff we've seen in the past.
So you're telling me this thing isn't all the way over?
They haven't canceled the program.
Okay,
that's the good news.
I don't know. I could be swayed into thinking maybe they should.
But when do they allow recruits to come in on official visits? Like, you don't want to see lose to Kansas.
Yeah, has anything happened with the 11 a.m. kick for Kansas in terms of altering things or anything?
So far, nothing, but that's not that unusual. I mean, you know how that, like, usually they'll kind of see, okay, what are flights going to be like? Is it even realistic? And then, usually maybe that Sunday or Monday of a visit week, they'll kind of, okay, that's probably not going to be what we want to do just because, like a guy like Caden McDonald, now he's got a chance. I don't know, because, with the time change, he gets a little bit of an advantage, that kind of thing. Now, I will say Tassili Akana had a similar thing. He made it to Texas for an 11 a.m. kick for the Alabama game and played a game that night before. So maybe he, does it again. He just catches a red eye, and I know he really enjoyed that Texas visit, so I don't think it really negatively impacted anything about that trip. So maybe it's still possible. It's going to probably come down to flights and what the players feel up for, and if OU feels like they can put their best foot forward recruiting those guys.
I've always wondered what the conversation is like with a recruit, or maybe even more specifically, a guy that is committed. Like the Jeff Lebby, Jackson Arnold discussion, or whenever they talk after a game like TCU. Like, I know that Jackson was there. We went and saw him on Friday, Bob. I always wonder what that conversation is like. Do they have like that real conversation where it's like, Dillon's just missing throws? Like, it's obvious to everybody, but I've always wondered what that behind the scenes conversation is like when a team is struggling, but you're still trying to be real with a guy or real with a recruit that you obviously have a good relationship with.
I would be pretty surprised if Jeff – now, I think it's going to vary from coach to coach, but everything I've ever heard about Jeff Lebby, I'd be very surprised if it's not a very blunt conversation.
Right.
Like, just about – I think that's just who he is. Like he's he knows Jackson's a smart kid. He's not going to treat him like he's stupid. Now, some kids or some coaches, the dynamic's going to be different. But Jackson, I think, is a very, confident kid. Like, I think he knows what he's walking into, and he may not hate it. He may see it as, well, even if Dillon comes back, maybe I'm not in that bad shape.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably pretty realistic conversations going on. And, on the defensive side of the ball, guys, this is why we've used so many of our scholarships on the defensive side of the ball, because we need immediate help here. And you guys are the type of players that we are trying to build this thing around.
Precisely. Like, I would have to think that Miguel Chavis is on his phone almost immediately texting PJ
Colton,
Colton Bassick and saying, we could use you. Would you like to play today? Like, could you get eligibility to come play at the Cotton Bowl?
Josh, it's an even year, so OU's the home team. I have not heard like any big time recruiting groundswell about this weekend. We know the days of Adrian Peterson going to the game and maybe the winner of that actually matters, but I haven't heard like all these guys talking about going to the Cotton Bowl.
I've kind of been surprised about that myself, Bob. There really hasn't been. I've got a list of about 12 to 15 guys. I'm still working on Woke. We're going a little early on the pod today, so kind of finishing that up. But I've got several guys, mostly commitments at this point in time. But there are guys like, but it's again, OU's almost done in 23. So you're not going to see, like you said, the Adrian Peterson story where, oh man, okay, well now let me go take all my official visits. Most of these guys have done it all. They've run that race, and then whatever guys are left, the Caden McDonalds, the Cecilia Kanas, they're from out of, even the time zone. So it's just not an easy thing for them to get to, especially on their own dime. But I think in 2024, you're going to see some names. Devon Keys is going to be there. Casey Poe, the big offensive lineman from Lindale that picked up an offer during OU's camp. In 2025, two of the top players in Texas are hoping to be there. One is confirmed in Devin Sanchez, the big-time corner from Galena Park North Shore that really likes Jay Valai. OU hasn't landed a North Shore guy in 20 years. It's been a long time. They've got a chance with him. They really do. And then Jacorian Moore, the big-time receiver from Duncanville, is working on it. I think he wants to be there. I don't think he's finalized his plans, but there are absolutely some talented guys that are going to be there. And I've really just started confirming over the last 24 hours, so there's going to be a lot more that rolls in. But you're right. It hasn't been this massive, 400 guys are all of a sudden like, oh, I'm going to be there, that kind of thing. It's been a little more quiet than that.
The OU Texas weekend, just recruiting in general is always kind of weird because obviously they can't talk to the players. They can't bring them down on the field. It's always kind of awkward to me.
It's a weird dynamic. And you hear coaches talk about that all the time. But guys, the weirdest thing to me, and it happened in the off season, and not to kind of take us away, but Georgia and Florida are just now able to do this. And I was like, there's a precedent. Why is this? Why did they have to fight this? This should just have been like, oh, yeah, OU and Texas have been doing this for 40 years. Okay, cool, done. I don't know why anybody has. It is. I mean, it's such a unique experience. And Eddie, guys that don't even, have never seen the game or don't, they're not from Texas or Oklahoma, that doesn't mean as much to them as maybe kids that grew up in the middle of it. They go, and you'll talk to them, and they're like, I can't imagine not playing in that game. That's all I'd ever want to, I might go to one of those schools just to say I did.
Well, it's just like
you get it from the player, like Jaleel Farouk, Eric Gray, like people that are never around it.
Yep.
They get it now.
It's just and you could tell like Eric Gray was just like, he loves playing in this game. Like he was just
he didn't
beaming.
do much in last year's game, but he loves the atmosphere.
It's just like the conversation that I think a lot of people that have never been to the game have of we'd like to see this go home and home. It's like no. You've never been. Have you been to the Cotton Bowl? Have you experienced the fair? Have you experienced the walk-in, the buses coming in, everything that goes into that Saturday? And it's one of the reasons why it's one of my favorite Saturdays of the year. And I'm actually frightened by just stepping foot on the fairgrounds this year, and it's kind of sad in a way. It's pathetic on my part, but it's just the best. It really is the best.
Just a bunch of like Professor Proton sitting at home, like, they should have a.
Well, it's the same people that bitch about the student section or the OU fans leaving early from
It's people
from
that
at
have
home
never
on their
been
couch.
there, or never experienced it.
You've talked about it, but if you don't have a favorite route to the Cotton Bowl, then you can't talk about this game and where it should be played.
That's right.
Like, that is a
Secret favorite route.
Secret. Yes, you have. Yes, you can. You don't
Back
share
roads.
the route, but you have your way to the Cotton Bowl that is better than everybody else.
I'm going to tell you, some of you son of bitches have been talking over the last few years because my route's getting more and more traffic. You need to shut your pie holes or die.
It's the secret favorite route. It's the beer stand that everybody always congregates at. You know, everybody has their own little nook of the state fair or around the Cotton Bowl where it's like, that's where we'll be. You know, we'll be outside gate 5, or we'll be outside gate G, or whatever however they do the gates.
Or
we'll
be on this set of benches over at this station.
Right, and they never change.
Yeah.
And it's always the same. You know exactly how many tickets each beer booth is, or Fletcher's corn dog place is.
When I was
It's just
younger,
perfect.
the turkey leg was a very acceptable just to be walking around with it. When you get old and fat, you can't walk around with the turkey leg anymore.
Well, it's keto, right?
I will do it shamelessly.
You would.
I'll double
You are-
fist turkey. I murder turkey
You're a
legs.
freaking oaf. I mean, you're a massive giant man. You can get away with it.
I'm pure carnivore, man. I want you to know that I eat turkey legs just fresh off the bone. That's what I do.
I got to tell you, just if I could have a turkey leg DoorDash to me, I would.
Oh yes.
Like eat that in the privacy of my own home. That would be
every once in a while
magnificent.
You can find like little what are they called? Food trucks and stuff that will have like the fair food, or like all the sorts of stuff that you could probably find.
I'm a turkey leg and funnel cake. That's really the only fair foods I care about.
Yeah, funnel cake is just never.
I think I like the idea of a funnel cake, and then I get halfway through a funnel cake, and it's like, okay,
I've never done that.
Messy.
Never.
Messy, sticky.
It's good. It just like I get halfway through it, and I'm like, okay, I could have just had a quarter of this and been okay.
But
mean,
like, are you guys like
sacrilege,
fried
I'm sorry.
Oreo and that kind of like? I can't do that.
No,
It's
the
too
Oreo
rich.
is too greasy when you fry it.
Yeah, it makes me feel
bread
gross.
it and all that. Yeah,
I'm really not a fair food connoisseur. Like I don't delve into all the crazy shit that they put out there as like the text. Like we went through the list today of all the state fair stuff, and it's just like not so much.
Yeah.
Are
I mean,
is
well,
that
here's
wasting the tickets that could be used on wax cups, Eddie? Is that basically what that comes down to?
Yeah, really. I mean, in a perfect
Yeah.
world, the only thing that you would be doing is buying wax cup beers and maybe an Adderall here and there.
Well, you know what the biggest rookie move of all is at OU Texas is telling someone to meet me at Big Tex. Because you will never find them.
I think I went more than like a decade when I started going to the fair, and I figured this is the 18th OU Texas that I've been to in 19 years. The only one that I missed was because of
you didn't
the
get
thing
to go
Fauci
'cause-
made up.
Yeah.
But it took me a decade to go, oh, so that's it? All right, I'm out.
But
like
Big Tex?
I don't need
Yeah.
to see it.
Yeah.
There's very much a like, oh, big gulps, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, have a great day.
100%.
It's just not as inspiring as you want it to be.
It's one of those things like you stand there and you hear the howdy folks and it's like, okay, well, it's kind of cool that they have a speaker up there that's so loud everybody can hear it, but that's it. Like
That's it?
That's it. And when he burned down, I thought it was awesome.
And then he just resurrected.
Big Tex on fire. That was awesome. Yeah, then they came back with, well, I don't know if it's politically correct, but now they call him the Texican.
So they don't call him Big Tex anymore?
Well, they call him officially his name is Big Tex, but he's multicultural now. He came back with caramel skin.
I didn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is that from the charring?
It could be, yeah. It could. I mean, maybe he's lifelong scarred.
I appreciate that they represent where he came from, that his battle scars are there.
We all can debate the greatest resurrections of all time. We'll do that in a separate pod.
Like there's not a predefined number one.
Well, everybody's power rankings their own. I won't share mine.
Don't want to pollute the field. I got you.
Anyway, yeah, I was never a midway guy. Like I was never really big on play. I think like when I was in junior high, maybe I did it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you realize this is rigged. Then you give up.
Yeah, but that's part of, I think, just fairs in general, isn't it?
Yep.
Like you play the games, you know you're not going to win usually, and
but
that's
the thing
part
is,
of the
like,
charm.
you never do that. Like when you're in Texas, like wearing OU gears, then you really feel like it's rigged. Like, they're just rigging this because I'm from Oklahoma.
Well, I think that there's nothing better than leaving the fair as like, and we were talking about this before practice interviews last night. It's like that second wave of people that come to the fair like on Saturday evening or late Saturday afternoon, and they could not give a shit about what happened hours before the Cotton Bowl. Some of those people probably don't even know that there was a football game that day.
Yeah.
They're there just because it's a Saturday and it's the fair.
Right.
And those are the people that, you know, when I was young and dumb, as I would exit the fair, those are the people that we would love to talk to. And maybe say
talk to has extra meaning.
Oh, you mean talk shit to?
Well, I mean, yes, but there's been multiple fights in groups that I've been in leaving the fair because maybe some things were said to people as they were walking in to have a lovely evening at the State Fair of Texas. Like we used to act like we were handing out Holiday Bowl information to Texas fans.
There you go.
Interesting.
And that was
fun.
fun.
They had no idea what you're talking about.
Absolutely none. Yeah. I mean, most of the time they usually didn't even speak English. But it's a fun time. It's a fun time to be had.
I mean, let's face it. When we talk about football games in our lifetimes, some of our most memorable moments are not in Norman.
Yeah,
they're rarely in Norman.
That's why when talking about OU Texas, it's been kind of interesting this week specifically to talk about the experience of last year because it was so incredible. The comeback, Caleb Williams coming in, and it's almost has this like dark cloud over it, like you can't talk about it,
right?
Because of everything that's
Caleb
involved
Williams,
in that.
Marvin Mims brought up the names, like, oh my goodness.
It's like you can't say that.
You sure
you
you're
can't
allowed,
say that
sir?
name. It was amazing though, and I think that that the walk from the end of the third quarter last year to back to the OU end when everything was starting to shift and the momentum and the video that that I put out just of the crowd and like the shot of like everybody going crazy, like that's one of the most incredible, just legitimate college football atmospheres I've ever been in.
Yeah,
and we've been in some pretty cool places.
And, a lot of that, like you said, is coming back from Fauci.
Yeah,
land,
I mean, there was a certain
It was
Guys,
it was awesome.
Talking about the players and what they will and won't say about the past. Is it interesting to you? And maybe it's more normal than I'm used to, just because I haven't seen many coaching changes from the team I cover. But Brent talks about like, oh, last year we did this, or last year we busted on a coverage. I'm like, you don't have to own that, Brent. Like that's I mean, like that's not a you problem. And he's like, yeah, we busted on an outside coverage, and the receiver just went up the field and scored on that first play of the game. And you're like, I have to do a double take every time I hear it because I'm like, no, he wasn't here. No, this isn't that old. And it's just a weird thing. I'm like, do coaches normally do that? It's just an interesting conversation.
When parents break up and they remarry, I mean, it's not like they say they're not my kids.
Is that kind of one of those things, though? Is that his way of saying something without saying something, and that he's almost telling you, the fan, especially when he was using the example of like the Kansas game and the act of God yesterday?
Awesome.
Isn't that his way of kind of saying like, you guys don't realize how broken this thing was, and specifically defensively, like you should not have been winning 11 games. This should have been a 7-5 team last year, and it was because of the breaks in the foundation of the defense. I almost feel like that's his way of kind of throwing it out there, and he did it the first time he did it. When we talked about this last week, was after the Kansas State game, where it was almost a tone of, you don't realize that like the job that we have cut out for us in having to turn around a defense that really you didn't give a shit about it the last couple of years. Like last week at TCU, there are offenses, specifically 17 and 18, they would have found a way to win that game 55-51 or 62-58. They would have found a way. And, because they were so good offensively, I think that kind of leads into, like, as an example, last week, TCU's offense, when you're scoring at the rate that Oklahoma did, that puts even more pressure, not on the TCU defense, but it puts pressure on the offense to have to respond every time.
Right. I mean, I've talked to a couple of people about this. I don't know, Eddie, maybe you and I talked about this, but like it is so bizarre, like watching the TCU game and the bus and not being able to execute, and like watching Stutzman regress and Agwebu not play well, and the defensive ends regress, like, and the secondary continued to just be terrible. And Woody Washington, like, for him to regress like that, like, it makes me wonder if this isn't all mental. Like, if it's, and I don't want to get to, I'm not a psychologist, I don't want to get into all that stuff, but it is really like these guys, I don't know if it's they like this staff, they know that they're good coaches, like, they don't want to let them down, so they get, like, they freak out, like they panic, like, and Brent's even didn't he denied that he used the term panic when he clearly did that on his coach's show.
John Shen brought up a great point. We were talking after the press conference yesterday, and you can see on television, on just the TV broadcast, of guys, especially in the back end in that first game, they're talking, they're communicating, they're getting calls over to the far side of the field, everything that goes into playing good defense. And over the last couple of weeks, and specifically last week when Billy Bowman came out, there was no talking. It's almost like somebody doesn't want to speak up because that's the signal of, we don't know what we're doing, or we're unsure about the call, or we're unsure about anything. And, once you get to that point, it's going to be hard to play really good defense. It's going to be hard to go full tilt because you don't want to make a mistake.
It just seems like it's more than just, I mean, for Brent to come out and say they do all this stuff on the practice field and we get in the game and they panic, like, it's an indictment on the mentality of those guys.
But I guess,
and that's why I said it's so important for them to go out and make some plays early in the game, get a stop, not let them score first. Like, they have to build something because this thing has been essentially burnt to the ground.
You have to get some type of confidence, some type of momentum in knowing, and that's why it was so disappointing. Go back to the K-State game where they'd gotten three and outs. They were starting to build momentum, and that's when it's the offense's turn to take charge of that thing, to go down and score, and they shoot themselves in the foot with a pre-snap penalty, or they shoot themselves in the foot by going 3 and out and having to punt and give the ball right back to Kansas State. So, it's kind of been, one of those cliche lines, if it's not one thing, it's another. And it just seems like every time that through 5 games that they've had an opportunity to get any type of momentum, they've just pissed it away, whether that be offense or defense.
By the way, if you are going out to the state fair, you always want to look good. Dead Soxy can help you with that. DEADSOXY. It's too late to get your socks for this upcoming Red River game, but through the rest of the season, getting cooler now. You want to go ahead and pick yourself up some of the great socks from deadsoxy.com. If you use the promo code SCOOP, you'll get 25% off your entire order. But great collections, the no-shows, we love those. But also plenty of dress socks. They got the team colorways. You can get your crimson and cream socks for game days. Also, just their dress sock collection is great. I mean, if you want something to wear every day that looks great, that stays up on your leg and doesn't slip down around your ankles, go check them out. Deadsoxy.com, DEADSOXY. We all have them. We all love them. Wouldn't wear anything else. Use that promo code SCOOP. Get 25% off your entire order. Okay. Outside, I mean, really, I think we've broken down kind of what we're looking for.
Got to get a turnover. Got to get a turnover.
What do you guys think about
Got to play the freaking ball. I mean, that's the
They haven't had a turnover in the first half this season.
What do you think about just Texas offensively?
Yeah.
Like with the juggling of quarterbacks, Hudson Card, Quinn Ewers, Bijan Robinson's obviously a problem. Xavier Worthy's obviously a problem.
I mean, Whittingham's really good.
I to a certain extent, terrified of what Jatavian Sanders could do to this defense.
He's a matchup problem.
Yes.
What's the answer there? Like, I think if you're Texas, and this could be because of how Oklahoma's playing defensively, it's like, why rush Quinn Ewers back? Hudson Card's been good enough. He could beat Oklahoma.
Totally agree.
Well, and I think it depends on what his Ewers been able to do. Like,
sure.
You don't want Hudson Card's getting better and better. Like, you don't want to kill that momentum if Ewers is just now coming back. Like, if this is the first week he's really been practicing full go, like, I wouldn't risk it on this team. What we've seen,
the way that you said it yesterday, it's like, I mean, with the way that Oklahoma's playing in the secondary right now, Hudson Card can throw up a money ball, and they're either going to get a pass interference or they're going to be able to complete the play.
Just go out there, Hudson. Just go out there and play 500 with your receivers.
Well, and Hudson Card can obviously beat you a lot, probably more. I mean, shit, Ewers might be able to beat him with his feet, but I mean, Hudson Card can do it a little bit better, I would think.
Did you guys not grow up playing 500?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
I was really good.
I was curious if that was like a Southeast Kansas thing or not.
I'm sure hands out on the streets of Hickory Hollow.
Just 5 throws and it was over.
Yeah, that's all I need. Unless I played with somebody taller, which was the case a lot.
I don't even know what the rules are to that anymore.
Well, they probably don't play. It's probably been canceled.
I would imagine that got canceled.
Like the bomb ball, like you can't say that anymore.
I think
smear the
that's when
that's gone. That's all I knew growing up.
I think so. I remember playing
that one should be gone. I mean, let's not act like cancel. No, you should. That should be gone.
I mean, the name should be gone.
Right.
The idea of young boys just beating the living crap out of each other. That's probably
long live. That's a time-honored tradition. Yeah. It's right up there with want to see a dead body.
What do you think they're going to do offensively, Josh?
From which side? Texas?
Yeah, just Texas in general. Because I do think that, it's fascinating to me that both of these teams are 3-2, and it seems like both of these teams are just light years away from each other. I mean, arguably Texas is 4 or 5 plays away from being 5-0 and probably the number 2 team in the country right now. Or, that's debatable.
Yeah, top
wherever
5.
they would be.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be in serious playoff conversation. With Texas, like I said, I think the Jatavian Sanders thing, I know everybody's going to talk about Bijan and Worthy, and don't get me wrong, they've got a chance to have big days too. Oklahoma, even when they're playing well, they have some problems that deep middle. Like they've struggled with that. You go back to that Nebraska opening drive where that big long touchdown down the seam. I mean, that has been an issue for this team. And a guy like that running up and just going up the between the hashes, golly. I mean, he and Jatavian's a guy, for those who don't remember, was a big-time recruit out of Denton Ryan, was a teammate of Billy Bowman's. So there is he's a guy that he looked at OU and just never really got that invested. But he's a guy I like as a defensive end. So, I mean, to kind of give you an idea of his size, he is a legit 6'5", probably pushing 250 now. He's a big, sturdy guy, really runs well, and is a better blocker than watching. Again, I'm still working on Under the Hood, hoping to have that out on Thursday. He's more complete than I would have expected him to be. And so then you throw that in, and you throw Bijan. Again, guys, I don't know why you would put this game on Quinn Ewers or Hudson Card until you had to. I'm going to keep handing it to Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson, who everybody loves Bijan. Roschon Johnson is a problem for a team that's struggling to tackle because you will drag him to the ground. He's not going to give you anything free. He runs really hard, and is just a guy I like a lot. He's one of those guys that, even as an OU fan, I would think most OU fans could watch him and just be like, I respect that dude. He plays hard, he plays tough. But yeah, I mean, I would expect a 60-40 run. Like I'm going to force Oklahoma to show me they can run, they can stop the ball consistently, stop the run consistently. There we go.
You thought little Jordan Humphrey.
Yeah,
Jordan was tough.
PTSD. You talk about PTSD. Jordan Humphrey.
Wait for Sanders
carrying guys 15 yards down the field. And
this is why the defense has PTSD. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Texas, even if Oklahoma was playing well defensively, it's a tough match.
It's been a one-possession game ever since 2014.
Yeah, OU's going to have – the roles are completely reversed in that, obviously Oklahoma's an underdog for the first time in this game since 2009. They have to play the game that Texas has played so many times here over the last, decade or so where they're outmatched, we think, at least on paper, from what we've seen. Maybe not just on paper, but they're overmatched, and they have to go make the turnovers. Or force the turnovers. They have to go out and be the team that you look up in the second quarter and you go, where the hell's this been over the last couple weeks? Which is rather depressing.
It's like the David Ash game plan.
Right. I mean, they kind of have to play that game where, and I think that's where you lead into like, you got to throw everything at him, whether it be trick plays or a fake punt or a fake field goal. You have to hit those right spots, and that's going to be interesting because Brent Venables is going to be calling this stuff truly for the first time. And
we've also seen
maybe that's where Jay Nunez comes in and says like, we've seen something on film. They've shown an inability, on a 4th and 13 to cover the middle. We can hit them here.
Yeah.
Or, there's other things that and maybe that's where the analysts come into this game, and maybe a Matt Wells sees something that we haven't seen before, and they go, this is where we have to throw it at them.
Yeah, I mean, Marvin Mims, I can't believe we're even talking in this. I mean, this shows you that we're later on in the week, we're over things, but Sunday we would never have said, well, if they return a punt.
Yeah, but that is the type of stuff
Jalil Farouk on kickoff returns.
Changes a game, like the Jordan Shipley back in 2008, or, even last year with Caleb Kelly forcing the fumble on the kickoff return. There has been countless moments in this game where you better be really good in 3 phases or it's going to come back and bite you. And, for the most part, Oklahoma's been really good in the special teams. But who knows? Like it's a little bit different kicking a 34-yard field goal if you're Zach Schmidt and have never attempted one inside the Cotton
we've
Bowl.
seen Gabe Burkett.
Tell Gabe Burkett, and that was the COVID year.
Right. Yeah, great point. Block punt or a block field goal in that game. I mean,
and then he just shanks it.
Right. So those are the types of things that you kind of worry about going into this game, or maybe not worry about, but they have to be talked about because it's just I know that like
you got to take shortcuts.
For me going into this game, it's like there's 2 things that you can kind of count on or that you're wishing for, and it's hope that you play better defensively, which, I have no reason to think that they will, but my God, how possibly worse can it get? And then B, it's the rivalry of the OU Texas game and the weirdness that happens inside the Cotton Bowl, and you just hope that
you got to hope that Texas really is taking OU lightly is what you got to hope.
Yeah, and
because all those years when OU came in as a heavy favorite, nobody talked about, and I don't think they're doing this in Austin, but nobody around here talked about the possibility of Texas upsetting Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the position Oklahoma's in right now. They got to hope that those guys have seen enough on social media and enough, through the questions they've been asked this week, that Oklahoma seems like an afterthought.
Well, I talked to some people from the Texas side too, just from guys that cover the team, and I kind of gave them my spiel about how downtrodden everything is right now in Norman, and it's like, well, I mean, Texas has not necessarily, outside of maybe last week, shown the ability to run away from somebody, and I guess that's what you kind of bank on, but at the same time, I don't know how much you can just hope that something goes right. Like I need tangible evidence that says they're going to be better, or they're not going to bust, or they're going to be able to run the ball. And if they can't do that, it's obviously going to be a really long day and maybe even a long season.
The thing to remember, guys, and everybody keeps saying, and Eddie said it earlier, and he's right, that Texas controlled that game in Lubbock. They did. And they probably should have won it by any measure.
Yeah.
At the same time, Texas Tech might be the worst team in the Big 12. Like there is a real conversation. Again, Oklahoma, they could be there too. I don't think so. I think the talent alone will probably carry them a little bit. But I mean, the fact that Texas was in that game, and didn't just bury them and leave them for dead. I don't know. That doesn't scream to me that, this team's got it all figured out. I think people saw the Alabama game and kind of ignored how bad Alabama was in that game and turned into, Texas is really that good. And I'm like, I think there was some truth in the middle. Don't get me wrong. I expect Texas to win this game, but there are some they're not playing highly efficient football or anything like that.
Well, and
they also only had viewers for half that game too. So.
Sure, but who knows? Like I have found and I wouldn't base anything more than just the number out there, but it's been fascinating that number hasn't rose in Vegas so far this week. Maybe that has a little bit to do with Gabriel.
Yeah, I was surprised it was even on the board early in the week. I mean, what I saw it start out as 5.5. Was it 7 now? It was 7 last night.
Yeah, I think it's still hovering around there. It's gone back and forth. 6.5.
The over is
7,
what
65,
shocked me. 65.
like
yeah.
That feels like Texas, like Vegas knows something, because that line feels like, based on what we've seen the last few weeks, that should be 10 or 12.
Sure. That might even be
that might be
little
honest.
conservative.
You're right. You're right.
So
I don't know. I guess I just have very low expectations for what this thing is right now. And it has obviously everything to do with how they've played over the last 2 weeks. Like, if they would have walked out of Fort Worth with a loss, but it's a hard-fought loss, like 35-31, and TCU just happened to put together a great drive at the end of the game, you battled, you didn't get embarrassed. But, I mean, I keep going back to this idea that we spent 6 days or whatever it was last week talking about a fast start, talking about like how they were going to respond. This was the loss that they needed.
them telling us
that.
Like, okay, we're more physical, we're more paying attention detail, like we are ready for this.
And they came out and produced one of the most embarrassing quarters, and I truly believe this, if it's not just of my lifetime, but in the history of the program, to be down 27-10 and have given up, what was it, like 275 yards in the first quarter. It's like, that's the response that this team had? Is there something bigger that I'm missing here? And I know that it snowballed on them. When you fumbled the third play of the game and it's 7-0. But even Kerry, we talked about this on the postgame pod on Sunday. 13-3. Jalil Farouk returns the ball to the 39-yard line, and Gabriel misses a throw to Braden Willis in the flats. That was a very easy play. Yep. Should be a pitch and catch. Should have been a first down. And then he misses Marvin Mims over the top and just airmails him. And all of a sudden, 2 plays later, literally 2 plays later, you're still in the game. 2 plays later, it's 20-3. And that's all she wrote. Like, I know it was early in the game, but my God, you're digging out of a 17-point hole, literally 6 minutes into the game. It was very deflating.
It was 14-0 Texas 2 minutes into the game.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just like, and I think that's where it's only human for a lot of those players on the sidelines. As much as Braden Willis wants to, up and down the sidelines, yelling at teammates, trying to lead, there's only leadership that can go so far when it's kind of you're back into the situation where it's like, well, shit, here we are again. So I think that there is like a mental hurdle or speed bump or whatever you want to call it that's there that they have to get over. And it just seems like even through 5 games, they just haven't had anything go. Like
they're
hate
afraid,
to say,
like if they play well, that their coach is going to leave them again.
I don't know about that as much as it's just like, I don't know if they believe that they can do it. They can say that they do, but until you go out there and do it, and they've talked about momentum, and we know how much momentum is a thing in this game, even maybe more so than a regular game. It just like, I don't know, Josh, you kind of mentioned it, and I think it kind of rubbed me the wrong way as well. It's like, Brent Venables can stand up there and say this is just an ordinary game as much as he wants, but if Sark was saying that, and I think he did a year ago, it's like,
yeah, he got blasted.
You're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Like, you're lying to yourself if you think that this is just an ordinary game.
I've never, like in these big rivalry games, like you look back through history, and the coach who tries to downplay them and act like they're not a little different. I'm not saying you have to build it and make it the Super Bowl and your whole season's lost. And I realize that's probably more poignant for Brent right now just because of, where his team is. It feels like this is a season on the brink kind of thing. At the same time, to just say it's some other game, that doesn't resonate very well like that, because it's different. This is the reason you want to be the head coach at Oklahoma, is to coach in this game and coach in games like this that matter and that are big and that have a big national spotlight. This is, people are like, oh yeah, the only unranked game in the Big 12 this week is OU and Texas, blah blah blah. It's still going to be the most watched game in the league. Yeah. Like, cool, great, good for you guys. Like, there's a reason that these two teams are going to the SEC, because as shaken as they are, they're still the most viable, don't know,
entities.
I guess, yeah, in the league. So again, I just that I don't like. And I guess part of it is for me is like formative stuff. Like I remember John Cooper to Ohio State would always downplay Michigan.
Yep.
And then like as soon as Tressel got there, he's like, no, that's what we're going to beat that team up north. That's what we're going to do. Blah, blah. Like it was just very, very different. And Urban Meyer embraced it and Ryan Day has embraced it. Like, and you look at these big rivalry national games like that, the guys who accept that this is different. This is the stuff that, you know, because, guys, I don't care how they win. They go beat Texas this week. Almost everything of the previous 2 weeks is, I don't want to say forgotten, but forgiven, at least. Like, okay, fine. But you beat Texas. Now, everybody's going to
take out Kansas.
Exactly. Now you got to beat Kansas. Like,
undefeated Kansas.
And I get that part of what he was saying is like the biggest game is whatever game we're playing this week. And I get that mentality. I understand it. But you have to acknowledge Texas is just different. It always will be.
Well, and I think he's worried about emotions for a team that's already teetering.
Yeah,
about falling off the ledge.
It's also funny to hear like Brent Venables kind of not downplay it by any means, but say it's an ordinary game. I could see him not wanting to put the pressure on his team as far as going into this game and making it bigger than what it really is, and it's a regular football game. But it's also kind of, I guess, ironic in a way to hear a Justin Harrington or Woody Washington or whoever we talked to this week talk about
circling the game.
Well, and the momentum that they got last year and how it was such an important victory. And I understand that a little bit of that probably has to do with the way that they won it and the way that they came back in that game. But you can't say that it's an ordinary game and then also say that was the turning point in our season.
Because I think it was more the turning point in 2020. Because that was the team that was basically where this one is.
Same spot that they were in. They'd lost back-to-back games. You thought the walls were closing in.
We were talking about playing for the future. And I remember Lincoln kind of scoffed at that when someone asked him about that. Yeah. No, we're not playing for the future. There's still so much to do here. And you can get on that run again.
Yeah. No, it's... I think more than anything, and I don't want to make like a bold statement about this, about like the future of Brent Venables' career, and it might even be just obvious, you can't go out there and do what you've done specifically last week, because then I think that there are some seeds of doubt that are going to start setting in within the fan base if they're not already there, just as far as what is the direction of this thing? What is the overall big picture look like under Brent Venables if you go out and you do get embarrassed? And specifically, it goes into the recruiting stuff against Texas. It goes into just the preparation of moving to the SEC. It goes into everything.
I mean, I think, if they lose to Texas, which they probably will. I mean, I want them to win. We don't want to sit around here and have pissed off OU fans. Like,
we've already done it.
Yeah, I mean, we do that constantly. I mean, it's not like we don't do it, but like we want you guys to be happy. Like we want you to not hate everything. Like it's not fun for us, but at the same time, if they lose to Texas, I mean, you really have to start to question, and that would be 2 straight games, and we don't know how they'll play. Like if they go out to Texas and they lose, but they play well on defense, it's a good game. It's a tough loss. But if they go out and shit the bed again like they did against TCU, then I'm going to start asking, like, man, how far has this program fallen?
Yeah. I mean, what happened last week?
But we don't have to do that until we get there because I'm not trying to game plan the post-game pod right now.
Yeah, it's just like, and it's arrogant to say it, but the way that they lost last week and the way that sitting there in the second quarter, that doesn't happen at Oklahoma. It should never happen at Oklahoma.
You wanted a running clock in the second half.
Second half?
It's like
second quarter.
Yeah, second
quarter.
quarter.
As soon as Dillon went down, running clock, yeah. We're good. We are good here.
It should never happen at Oklahoma. I don't care if I don't care if they have the JV squad out there. It should never happen the way that they got beat last week.
Yeah, but like you said, it to me, there's something just foundationally wrong with the mentality of the players on defense.
Sure. No, it is.
And I know Brent's trying to change that, and all the other coaches are trying to change that. I mean, to me, one of the biggest indictments on this defense is, watching Grayson Halton out there when Todd Bates is a defensive line coach. I mean, like the defensive tackles coach. Like you're going to that guy, and he had the, like you said, he had one of the few highlights of the game.
Yeah.
But like the guys that you have all these people that are ahead, and like you've fallen down to him. Like that says something.
A little bit of that, I guess, has to do with injury, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
R. Mason and Stripling, you're missing 2 of your top 5.
Yeah, it just.
So you start going down the list.
But then you get into like the flat out injury situation with.
But
Oklahoma.
it's also. But I mean, what Ethan Downs was hurt a little bit, but I mean,
I missed that. I just completely. Missed
I just
that.
saw him coming back out of the locker room. It's like I didn't even know he went into the locker room.
Yeah, I didn't either. I missed it completely until somebody mentioned it this week. Like, but I mean, my God, Lualu. Grimes, like they
just haven't been good. They've been getting their.
Well, I mean, and the thing about it is, like, you look back, like Mike Stoops was hanging on to, it was Eric Stryker was the only edge rusher he had. Then it was Obo. I mean, was the only edge rusher he had. They never built any depth, and then Nick Benito came along, and I mean, that's 3 guys in like 10 years.
Yeah. Well, and I
mean that, like, and you could say that at almost every position. Like, how many difference makers at each position have they had over the last decade?
And
it's very small numbers at each position.
We've talked about it, and this kind of
may be 0 at safety.
It goes into
Tony Jefferson's the last safety that was worth a damn that played at OU, I think.
Sure, and it goes into just the conversation of death. But I mean, we probably, and I guess we did to a certain extent. But I mean, they lost specifically off last year's team. It's like. You lose Benito. You lose Isaiah Thomas. You lose Perry on Winfrey. I think that there was just this thought that some of these guys were going to be able to come in and step in and be, serviceable on the defensive line, and they just haven't over the last 2 weeks.
But the problem is the defense has never been great. And then the offense was great, and all that stuff got taken away.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It covered it up.
So, yeah, winning you said earlier,
everything.
If you have that offense, it covers up the defense. The defense has been shit for a long time.
Yeah.
So it's almost like we shouldn't be surprised that this is happening. We're only surprised because it's happening to Brent Venables and his staff.
100%.
Yep.
100%. The tone would be much different. And I think that and it's because of obviously the way that they played in the first 3 games where you're leading the country in tackles for loss. You're leading the country in sacks. And you look at the box score last week or over the last 2 weeks, a half of a sack for 2 guys is all you got a week ago. Like, are you kidding me? And I mean, Josh, can they help themselves with scheme? I know that, like, there are going to be people, I think including yourself, if they throw out that 3-man front this week, that just absolutely lose their shit, and rightfully so.
Guys, I don't feel any different than I did when we talked about it in the postgame pod. It's fine. Like, okay, again, it's a numbers game. You put a defensive lineman down, you're going to lose a guy in the secondary. Okay, fine. I get that there's a balancing game there. But you're not stopping the run. And it seems like to me, just mathematically, to put another guy up along that front is going to help you in that enterprise. Like, you're going to be better at stopping the run if you have one more big body up to at least to eat up those blocks. Because, guys, we talked about Danny Stutzman and how good he looked in those first 3 games. A big part of that was the fact that he had guys taking bodies off of him. He's getting picked up and not able to flow to the football. Eddie, you talked about the little choppy steps he's having to take and that kind of stuff. He and Agwebu were just able to run to it, just go get the ball. And I get that there is a conversation that technically they're playing a 4-down front because of the alignment and the way they're doing things. But I'm just talking about having another big, strong, burly guy to eat up a guard, to take a tackle away from pinning Ethan Downs inside, or letting Reggie Grimes play a little wider where he seemed more comfortable in those first few weeks. I'm not an expert. I'm not pretending to be, but there are things that just don't make sense. Like it's all these kind of changes happened, and then all of a sudden it started to slide back, and it's like, well, we can't go back there. Why? Like I don't understand why that can't be looked at. Even again, if you've got to go pretty basic and just be like, we're going to be really good at the things we do and not get crazily exotic, fine. Like, and if that's like, if you're saying, okay, well, we want to build for the future. Okay. Then what are we playing some of these guys for if it's about the future? Like, David Agwebu's not going to be here next year. Justin Burrell's not going to be here next year. Either, it feels like they're trying to live like half pregnant. Like, okay, it's about the future, but we're going to play older personnel. Like, man, let it be one or the other. Either you're trying to develop guys to be better going down the line, or you're trying to win games right now in the best way possible. And it's one or the other.
David Agwebu could come back, though.
Damn it, Bob.
Are you trying to upset everybody? Damn it, Bob.
Broyles can't, but Agwebu technically could, just like Deshaun White did in terms of just using the 5th year for the COVID year.
It is not time for an if you care, Bob. God.
He does what he does, Josh. Just gotta let him do Bob.
That needs to be Bob's first T-shirt. Like,
he does what he does.
If you care.
Oh yeah,
just an if you care.
That'd be amazing. I think that'd be good.
We're the only 3 that really get that, though. Only 4.
I think there's some people that get it.
It shows up on the board from time to time.
Does it? Okay.
Usually
the board gets
in response to me saying something stupid and
Okay.
Bob fixing me.
Okay.
I have we exhausted the
I'm
OU
done
Texas?
talking about it, yeah.
I think our thoughts are out there. Just as far as what you went to last week, Josh, Pettaway, the Jaquiaze Pettaway, the OU wide receiver commit from Langham Creek. You sent back some of the video, and there's a lot to like there.
Yeah, he was super impressive. I think I want to say he ended up with 6 targets, 5 receptions for like 130. No, it was more than that. It was like 150 yards or something. Really had 2 primary big plays where he had an 84-yard touchdown catch where it was one of those things like you're tracking on the camera, and I know, Eddie, you can relate. You're like, come on, throw to him. And you can just tell in his body language the ball's in the air and it's headed in his direction. I'm like, come on, catch it. And then as soon as he's behind the secondary, I mean, he's gone. There's nobody catching him. The idea of him and Anthony Evans in that Jeff Lebby offense next year, I mean, that's got to excite Oklahoma fans because I think Pettaway has some pretty serious Marvin Mims vibes. Like there really is. The long speed is there, but he's more sudden than you think he is. He's not. Anthony Evans, I think, at times can look a little like a track guy, and he's still kind of piecing that together. But Pettaway, there's a little more quickness in and out of his breaks and just very natural. The thing that stood out to me, I guess the 2 things. One is I've always thought of him as a really quiet guy. Man, he was giving a couple of his teammates the what for just basically because, one of them early in the game, and the kid I think was injured, and Pettaway did not give a shit. He was like, man, that's not going to do it. We can't win like this. Like, I mean, he was in his face, and I was 10, 15 yards away, and I could hear most of the conversation. And then the second part was he's a better blocker than I would have thought, like, because he's kind of light in frame, but he was willing to get in there and mix it up, and same deal with Anthony Evans. They're both guys that, they kind of asked me, like, did you see me get that guy on the sidelines? I pancaked that dude. They were into it more than you usually see, especially from a kind of a smaller slot type receiver. So he's a guy, he'll play next year. Like, I kind of wondered, like, let's see where he's at. I don't see any way with his speed and the way he plays the game. I think he will be on the field early and often.
Bob and I went and saw Jackson Arnold. It was my second time. It was your first time. Geyer didn't really play well. I don't think I would characterize it as well, but they were up 42-7 at halftime, and it's very obvious that, what did you think of your first time seeing Jackson Arnold? He's a pretty talented kid, a lot bigger than maybe I expected the first time that I saw him.
Yeah, he's a lot bigger kid than maybe a lot of people know, and he threw a really nice ball the entire first half. I'm sure the focus might have been tough as you start getting 42-7, but as good as he was, there were some throws out there that he made that if they were brought down, you would have went crazy with gifts. But that's just the way it turned out. It was the biggest part of the night was Peyton Bowen and his punt return show that he put on. Because again, it's hard to learn about high school defensive backs because they're not going to get tested a lot. So when you see him do what he did in the punt return game, it gives you an idea of just what type of athletic ability he really has.
Peyton Bowen, Ryan Gates, Eli Bowen, the whole crew back there. I mean, it's obviously a very talented secondary for Dent Geyer, and for obvious reasons. And we interviewed Peyton after the game. Kind of is what it is. I don't.
This is before TCU too.
Sure.
So
I just would have a hard time thinking that he ends up at Notre Dame, but that's just maybe. I don't know. I'm basing that off of really nothing. He didn't. He gave the
Marcus Freeman was there.
The stock post-game high school recruiting interview. Loves all three schools: Notre Dame, OU, A&M. We didn't really get into the weeds on that, but they're obviously really impressive. We'll see Dent Geyer yet again, I'm sure, here at some point over the course of the season.
Play Allen here in a couple weeks
on the bye week. So it'll be really interesting. I think the game that we were kind of hoping that we would have been able to go to sounds like Eric McCarty had a hell of a night last Friday.
Sigh.
Josh, I know
you wouldn't if Bob had been there.
You'd put some stuff out just as far as people raving about McCarty and his performance against Del City.
Yeah, it was real random. Friday, I didn't go to a game Friday, and so I was just kind of at home, and I think I was working on Future Sooners actually, and was going over it. All of a sudden, like 3 different coaches, one of them from McAllister, and then 2 just guys that I don't know if they were doing some scouting for down the road or what it was, or just went to see a good high school game. But McAllister was playing Del City 1 and 2 in the state and some of the rankings in 5A, and it was just like Del City wins this game by 3 touchdowns if it's not for Eric McCarty. Like that was kind of the vibe I got. One coach made a Dax Hill comparison. I'm not saying I'm joining him on that bus. That is a mouthful to lay at a young guy's feet. But on a night when Del City really did a nice job bottling him up in the run game, I think he had 23 carries for like 84 yards or something real. Not what you would expect out of a major prospect that McAllister really builds their offense around. But he had 160 yards receiving basically on 3 catches and, scored the game-winning 2-point conversion, scored a touchdown with like less than 30 seconds left to basically tie the game and send it to overtime. So, or I guess that gave McAllister the lead, then Del City came back and kicked a field goal to force overtime, if I remember how that played out exactly. Yep. But yeah, he impressed everyone who saw him, because being a guy out in Southeast Oklahoma, you don't get a lot of chances for a lot of people to see you. So him being up in Oklahoma City, which is why Eddie and Bob were going to go see him, was a real opportunity for a lot of people. And again, this wasn't me hitting up coaches and being like, hey, what'd you think of McCarty? This was out of nowhere. Just like, Josh, this guy's unbelievable. He's that guy, that kind of thing. And so I think he's picking up a lot of respect around Oklahoma high school football. And I was talking to McCarty about it earlier today. Plays Del City, was number 2. Del City's now number 4 in the state. And now they're going to travel and go play Coweta, who's number 3 and also undefeated. So there's no rest for McAllister. They've got a pretty serious district slate.
Can I ask a dark question before we end this?
Oh, no.
In the week aftermath of David Hicks, is there anything new there? Not necessarily about like what happened, but more so about how OU's trying to handle this and whether they're going to keep contact, or has it been more of a let's give them 7 days, let's however X many days, and we'll just revisit.
My impression would be that if David Hicks wanted to make that call, they would pick up the phone. I don't think OU is going to actively spend time on that, because we know what went into this choice. Like, right. That's not changing right now. And where it gets interesting is if there's anybody feeling more downtrodden about their situation than OU fans right now, it's A&M fans.
Sure.
And they go to Alabama and may just get waxed this weekend. So that gets real interesting, and how do people start responding to that? Because, I was going to kind of tie this in with you guys talking about your Peyton Bowen interview. When I watched that, I came away thinking A&M might be the team to beat here. Like, just the way he answered some of that and the things he kind of, talked about, giving Jackson a hard time about some stuff. And you're like, okay, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Just kind of was the vibe I got from the interview. Everybody I've talked to tells me it's OU or A&M. Like, Notre Dame's just not very likely to be the end result, from what I have been told. So if that's the case and A&M really starts to fall off and, that defense kind of can't carry the offense around, maybe you can sell him, hey, like, you can come here. I mean, you got a decent chance to start from day one at OU, and you can be one of the guys that rebuilds this defense. And, as to where A&M, okay, cool, you can go there and be the defensive guy and do all that, and you're still going to go 8-5 every year because you can't score any points.
I just can't stop thinking about Davis Bevel wearing the gold hat,
Gold
MVP,
Really?
writing his name in the
Wow,
sky.
you've
No, I'm just kidding.
come a long way. 2 hours.
That's called a fantasy.
It'll
friends.
clearly be Nick Evers wearing the golden hat after it's over.
I mean, the thing that really caught me, and I think it was very obvious from Brent, was just the fact that he could have shut that down. I understand not wanting to show their hand, but he could have shut it down and said, yes, Davis will be the guy. But the way that he worded it, and, I don't know if we should start reading into things that Brent says, because I think that could get kind of windy at times. But, like, he definitely left that door open to somebody, whether it be General Booty or whether it be a Nick Evers, and I guess in a way, stranger things have happened at the Cotton Bowl before, whether it be McEachern back in, what was that, the 90s, or whoever. That was from the Texas side, obviously. But
Oh, yeah.
Hayes' dad, the great Hayes
Yeah.
McEachern. But I don't know. I would love.
You just need to stop.
I can't.
I think we all need to stop.
I can't.
Well, it was funny.
What's going to happen is going to happen. We can't talk OU into being a better football team right now.
I can try. It makes me feel better.
What was weird about that was Brent talking about Nick Evers is like how Common Fan talks about Jaron Kanik.
Right.
Like, that's a football player
the
that does
irony-
stuff.
the irony of it
When
as
Brent
far
talks
as-
about offensive players, and like, oh, well, Jeff will tell you why he can't be on the field. And then Jaron Kanik, oh, well, we'll tell you why he shouldn't be on the field.
That
yet.
would have been the perfect follow-up of, okay, flip it. What about Jaron Kanik?
Or let's let Jeff Lebby have some time now.
Yeah.
That caught my ear really funny too, Bob, and how differently they both handled basically the same conversation.
But I also get it. It's like it's a defensive guy talking about an offensive guy as opposed to.
I'm just going to say this. It's also a quarterback, and quarterbacks have dads. Like, they're more high maintenance. Every quarterback on the earth is a high maintenance person.
Well, you don't want to end up in a situation. Everybody knows Jackson Arnold is coming next year.
Yeah.
I think you in a way, as the head coach,
Yeah,
you got
you
to
want to
start.
kiss his ass a little bit.
Well, you have to, especially in today's day and age where a guy could enter the portal. You saw it at SMU, and not saying that anybody on this team is close to entering the portal mid-season, but it just you kind of got to play the game a little bit if you're gonna be out there.
Yeah. All right. OU Texas coming up Saturday. We'll figure out the post game as we go along.
I might just do it from the top of the press box, and you're having to talk me off.
Don't do it.
It'll be the first video
Don't wanna go
podcast
see
that
another
we've
shit
done.
show.
Like he's gonna jump.
We're doing that live.
Yeah, he's
You'll
gonna
find
jump.
out how much we can monetize live potential suicide.
He's holding
videos.
hostages, and he wants 50 tickets to all be spent on Wax Cup beers. That could probably buy him 3.
That'll get him 2 beers. All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back again for the post-game show and also the unofficial 40 next week. I don't know if you will or not. I guess that depends on Saturday. You might not want anything more to do with this football team if they put out another stinker. So we're here. We got to be here. We'll always be here. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next week for another edition of the unofficial 40 podcast right here on SoonerScoop.com.